will. And as long as we have our Second Amendment rights and we have our freedom of speech and everything else where we speak up and do what's right, according to law and according to the Constitution, nobody can ever suspend our government and our rights. But right now, from within, just like was said years and years ago in that famous speech, we ain't going to do it from outside. We're going to do it from inside. And that's what's happening. This scares the bejesus out of me.
Well, that's how every country or empire falls, is traitors within. It was Cicero. We can pull up his quote after the break. If you guys can find the Cicero quote, you can pull it up under Cicero. The traitor is the plague. That'll pull it up. He said, the enemy that comes with their flag openly is not the threat. It's the traitor within who talks like us, dresses like us. They are the plague.
It's dollars, 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 dollars. That's what's driving the world today. And the thing that's horrific, I mean, every day I go out and I see all these guys, support the troops, support the troops. There's a flag wave. And you got the American Legion down here at Marketplace Mall in Champaign collecting money. I went up to him and said, can you help us get to our appointments at the hospital 30 miles away? No. Can you help us get medical care?
Yeah, no, it's all just a beer drinking club. Stay there. I'm sorry about the break. Long segment coming up. Let's start back there, what they've done to people to expose the DU, and other people thinking about joining the military, what you're going to face, the pin cushioning, the testing of the vaccines, the DU, all of it. This empire doesn't care about you. Hi, we're going to premiere here for radio listeners and for Prisonplanet.tv viewers a 15-minute special report that we've been working on all week, Aaron Dykes and I, dealing with eugenics, bisphenol A, other chemicals purposefully designed into our society to reduce our fertility and to increase cancer and to confuse the gender. And we happen to have dug up the UN Planned Parenthood documents on it. This is devastating information. So that's coming up because there's a method to the madness. Yes, the ruling elite are insane, like Hitler. He was just an extension of eugenicist. But there's blowback even on them. The truth is they're just psychopaths that love to hurt people, and they've created a cosmology around which the scientific system basically executes this through compartmentalization. But now things are not compartmentalized. Dr. Doug Rockey, during the break, was getting into the fact that this empire, this republic, is not going to fall from without, but from within. Let's continue with how they treat people from DU poisoning, and from your research, how much it's proliferating in its use, Dr. Rockey, because people claim all day, you were mentioning as we went to break, the troops, everybody's like, oh, we love the troops, and oh, there was a casket of a guy killed by a Air Force MP killed by a improvised explosive device in Iraq, and his buddy, another MP captain, was on the plane, and we were told to wait while he got off, and then everybody stood up in the plane, and old ladies were saluting as the Boston police picked up the casket, and we all waited for 20 minutes till we got off, and people were crying, but it was almost like it was eating popcorn or something. It was entertainment. It was all just some new emotional thrill to live vicariously through the dead hero. I mean, how about you actually don't put them in fraudulent wars? How about you, for opium or for weapons sales or no-bid contracts, how about you actually give them treatment? How about you don't have them use DU? So, but see, they don't want that actual casualty number where they die right there. They'd rather you die in 15, 20 years after decades of torturous pain and deformed children. It's creeping death. It's slow-motion genocide. Dr. Rockey, you were talking about going to local veterans groups and saying, okay, help our dead and dying soldiers. And they said, take a flying leap into the ocean, pal. We just want some cash off well-meaning, gullible citizens. Break it down.
Well, let's talk about reality casualty. Now, you have these reports, and you've had them, you've updated, and you can post it. Here is the real casualties as of October of this year. 107,256 individuals have infectious and parasitic diseases. 9,367 individuals malignant cancer, 44,290 with benign cancers, 220,268 individuals with diseases of the endocrine, nutritional, metabolic system, 24,894 cases of leukemia, 367,749 with PTSD, 310,360 individuals with serious neurological problems, 147,267 individuals with cardiac problems, 182,783 individuals with serious respiratory problems, 450 individuals with digestive problems, 102,661 with serious genitourinary, 147,617 individuals with serious rashes, 396,552 of us with serious musculoskeletal problems, 359,998 of us with serious ill-defined conditions, and 200,846 with serious poisonings. That is the reality of casualties just from OIF and OEF. Now, the numbers for Desert Storm the percentages mirrored exactly the same. That is the real casualty numbers from the nonsense over no threat to the United States, but the real casualties, and the guys cannot get prompt and optimal medical care. And the problem is there really is no real good medical care to resolve these serious, confirmed medical problems. That's the reality is, and nobody wants to discuss it. There's not a mention on the mainstream media. There's not a mention in the newspaper or magazine about the real numbers of casualties, delayed and denied medical care, or the fact that there is no effective medical care to treat these people.
Well, doctor, and again, this is one of the biggest cover-ups obviously ever, and you've been tireless exposing it. And how many surgeries have you had yourself to stay alive because of this?
Well, I was on active duty as the director of the depleted uranium project doing the research for the Army with DU. I had 20 kidney surgeries. As the time I was director, they're saying, how are you doing the research and serving as director when you're so sick you're in and out of the hospital and surgery after surgery? When we were out in the Nevada test site blowing the stuff up to confirm the procedures and other things to write the Army regulations, I was literally passing blood. And I was having respiratory problems, and the rest of our team was, and everybody's going, my God, the Department of Energy scientists are out there going, what's wrong with you guys? You guys should be in the hospital, in an intensive care unit, and you're in the field doing research and blowing this shit up? And I go, that's right, because we have to figure out how do you protect and clean it all up. And we learned you can't do it, and you can't use it.
So the chicken neck bankers, the little Ivy League punks, send the troops off with a weapon that they know is a death sentence, and then they sell their new wars and their tyranny as if the troops want it. Oh, don't end the wars. The troops want to keep them going, and it's all pure bull, and they call Ron Paul insane for not wanting new wars.
What they happen, they don't provide the information to the troops. And, I mean, you have to understand, Christmas, okay? You know, I have been dealing with Christmas, a horrific thing now, since 1967. Okay, because I went on active duty in December of 1967, and I was down at Lackland Air Force Base when we had the meningitis outbreak in '67, in December '67, and I saw people die from meningitis. But all this happened and everything else, and so what happens? I had 5 calls over Christmas, from Christmas Eve through Christmas, 5 calls for screams for help, because over the holidays, all of the problems are intensified. Now, I can't solve these problems. All I can do is provide information. I can call the VA, call the Department of Defense. I can talk to my friends in Washington and say, take care of them, take care of them, take care of them. But when they refuse to do so, and they know they're required to do so because they don't care, because they can't admit what we have done to the American sons and daughters of warriors we sent.
That's right. I remember the congressional hearings in the mid-'90s where it would show the Marine captain, you know, photos before totally healthy, and the DU killing him and the guy in a wheelchair and then dying a few months later. And it's not patriotic, according to the bankers, to actually care about the troops. Now, before we went to break, I want you to talk about this. Talk about the groups you've gone to try to help dead and dying troops and get them to the hospital and stuff, and what the so-called veterans groups tell you.
They don't even want to hear it. I mean, the American Legion and VFW won't post the information. They won't post the casualty data. They won't post the medical directives. They won't post the mandatory post-deployment physical assessment form that is supposed to be filled out by every troop when they're deployed and come back. And sometimes they do it, most of the time they're not, and we know they're disappearing in the official files. They won't help us. I can't even get the local American Legion to transport guys with no legs 30 miles.
No, they just, most of them want to go get drunk and watch UFC and talk about how they love killing Arabs all day. And then you're like, hey, let's help guys with no legs. And they're like, eh. But I guarantee you their cars have got American flag and veteran stickers all over them.
Well, they always do, you know, and it never ends. You know, so all these veterans organizations, all you have to do, go to any of these organizations that are demanding money. Okay, is the medical directive up there mandating medical care for DU? Is the Army pamphlet up there confirming all of the physiological effects and the medical care required for all the burn pit exposures? Is the stuff up there on immunizations? Is the stuff up there that confirms all the health effects?
Doc, the New York Post this year, when Congress was trying to get medical care for people with asbestos poisoning, that all the major scientists said, yeah, we CAT scan their lungs. The police, the military, the firefighters, they've all got it. The New York Post and others called the veterans of 9/11 ambulance chasers. And I've met these guys where before they go give a speech, and then a lot of them die. Guys I've met in New York, cops and people are coughing blood up and are on respirators, mobile mask of oxygen. And then the news calls them scum because they're dying. I mean, this is evil.
You know, the guys, this brings it home, and you're bringing it home to where I'm almost ready to cry. Back in the 90s, the United States Army directed me to put together a chemical biological counterterrorism program for the New York Police and Fire Department Emergency Services Unit. The Emergency Police and Fire Department Service Unit that went into the World Trade Center were my friends. They were my students. We had directed them to do what we call reverse triage. In other words, move those that are mobile out first out of that building and leave the others to come back. And those people died. And my friends died. My police and fire that I trained died in that building trying to do the rescues. My best friend, I mean, again, another really good friend of J.C. Ventura is Willie Rodriguez. I know you know Willie.
Sure.
I mean, Willie is, God bless, I mean, he's a real American hero. He was the last man out of there alive. You know, and him and I, you know, we talk all the time and we cry and the tears, and then we saw in the paper the other day, they're giving a take it or leave it to the heroes, the police and the fire of 911, the people in the building that are all sick and dying.
10 years later, they can't even get medical treatment, and then the New York Post and others call them ambulance chasers when they're on record dying.
Yeah, it's no question, because when that happened that day, I mean, we called up there immediately up to them. I said, you need to do this, this, and this. This is what we told you. This is the requirements. This is medical care needs to be done. This is the decon that needs to be done. You got the requirements, so we gave it to, called up there the New York Police and Fire, and they ignored it. We called the Department of Defense. They ignored it. You know, Mikey Kilpatrick and McDermott at the VA, they all totally. And
it turned out the head of the EPA had been told, tell people the air is safe to breathe. They knew it was deadly.
Well, we had a conference at the EPA headquarters in Cincinnati, Ohio, a few years afterwards, and all this came out. And they had me in there as a keynote speaker.
Stay there. I want to hear about this in one more segment. Then our big special report's coming up. Again, police, military, the criminals running this country hate America, hate our freedom. And, yes, they're on record creating al-Qaeda. The bad guys are in control. They've hijacked the nation, and they... Warning. Time to stop bowing down to the crooks that run things, or things are only going to get crazier. We're going to finish up with Dr. Doug Rockey, a real patriot and a great American who's helped so many countless thousands of people. Finishing up with the 9/11 first responders. We're going to come back with a special report. But here's that quote from Cicero back during the